I mean, do I get to call being a luthier a disability? I'm a luthier. I'm destined to be poor for the rest of my life. Build a log! Oh crap, the camera is rolling, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Alright, welcome back. For this one, we're going to install the linings. It's a pretty simple process, at least the way that I do it. I've already gotten my sides set up into the mold. I use this really fancy, slightly tapered piece of wood. I've seen people with turnbuckles. It works. This is just easier because this is a bit of 2x4 that I cut at an ever so slight angle and just levered it in. It's fine. I like to use the solid bent linings. I've previously bent and made up, to quote the Rob Scallon video, in bulk. I made like 100 guitars worth of these just because it takes so long to do them. I took about a week and just did it. It took a long time just because of the machine that we use. Now these are about 4 millimeters thick, which is not easy to bend, but they're solid bent, and this is Spanish cedar, which is also not easy to bend. But for me, I want this guitar to be pretty light, all things considered. So this is a light material, it bent nicely for me, and that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to just start off by lightly clamping this in. I'm going to do this for all 4 sides. I'm only going to show you one because you can go back and watch it again. So just take this, and I like to check my waist to make sure that my waist here is about equal. Hold it pretty level, and because these are kind of generically bent, sometimes you have to put in a few clamps along the way. I don't like to use more than 3 just because you can walk it around. And all I need to do is mark that with a pencil, which I think... Alright, so I'm just going to come in and mark it on the outside. I'm just kind of looking down here and marking that right at the edge, and then I would just walk these right around, leaving 2 in place. This way I don't have to get out all of my clamps. They're just right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing at the tail end. Now that I've got those marked out, you know, if you've got a block that's tapered like this or like this, depending on the side, I like to use an adjustable square. You know, that's the one that gives you all sorts of angles to extend the line. But since I've got this in place, I'm going to take this to the bandsaw and cut it, and then I'll show you how I treat the wood before I glue it in. So let's go to the bandsaw. Alright, so now that we've got this mark here, I like to use this precision square, which in this case is not my grandfather's. This is one that I actually bought myself. I give it a little pencil line like that. I am referencing to the bottom side here because that's where I made the mark, and that's where I'm going to cut it to. So I'm going to take this to my bandsaw, and I'm going to very carefully line up the line, and this is one of the reasons I mentioned earlier that I like to run an open guard. This is one of the reasons I do this, is because I need to see what I'm doing. Ears. And just like that, I cut straight through to the edge of the line, which when I put this in, it'll fit perfectly. Alright, so this is fresh off the sander, and I'm just gonna put it up here, pull it into place. I like to clamp the end, and again, I'm using, these are the Pony 3201 spring lever clamps, right amount of clamping pressure, pretty simple. So I've got a little bit of extra space here, which is exactly what I want, because when I clamp that into place, it hugs up tight all the way around. So right off of the bandsaw, I was able to get this in one shot. If you don't, and again, it's taken me a lot of practice to do this way, but if you don't, all you have to do is grab a chisel and take a very careful slice down the end, and it doesn't take as much as you think. It's typically just a few little shavings, and then it'll fit really nice and tight and perfect. Again, I'm going to do this for the other 3 sides. Once I'm done with that, I'll show you how to treat these before they go in, because even though they're pre-shaped mostly, we can clean them up and make them look a little nicer. You can see right over here, they're kind of gross looking. So I'm going to take my scraper and just very simply give it a quick scrape around, and I'm not going to worry about that because that's just a little bit of a knot, but who cares. So I'm going to scrape all the way around to the edge. This takes just a moment, And I'll do that on all 4 corners. And then once I've done that, when these scrapers get to be too short to use, they turn into corner scrapers. So I've got the corner on this one set this way. And then I'll just come back and give a quick scrape on the back side. And I'm gonna do that for all 4 corners, and then we'll get that glued on. All right, so now that that's done, let's talk about clamps a little bit, because we're gonna be putting these in, and I actually have 2 styles of clamps. This is, like I'd mentioned, the Pony 3201, and then this is also the Pony 3201, but the big difference is that this one has the rubber tips removed. So I've got an equal number of the ones with the rubber tips and the ones without. The reason being, tradition. That's the way that's always been at the shop, so we use it to our advantage or disadvantage. So whenever we're putting in a lining that you'll see, meaning the one on the back, I'll be using this one. And whenever we're putting something in that you won't see, I'll use this one. Pretty simple. There's nothing wrong with using all of these. The only thing is that I have half like this and half like that. So that's what I'm gonna do. So now, because this gets really, really messy, I really like to put out some newspaper. It's easy to clean up a piece of newspaper. It's really annoying to clean up a desk after you've gotten glue on it and you want to do something else. So I like to give myself a big working space. Really simple. You want to make sure that you stay over your papers. Try not to drip onto your form. Hammers are very useful. Not 100% necessary, but very useful to have. We're just going to come up and over. On this side. Now you can see why I put out all the newspapers. Now if you're doing this with a curved lining with all the relief cuts, you'll have a little bit of an easier time because you just break off a section and install it. But this is a single piece. And the other thing is I'm constantly looking at these, at which way the curve is, and matching the curve to the direction of the body. And I'm installing them ever so slightly proud of the sides, so that way I can bring down the lining material to the sides. You know, you want to give yourself a little bit of extra room. You don't want to be too much. You don't want to be too little. And obviously you don't want to work too slowly either, because with the high glue, you've got about 2 to 3 minutes of working time before it really begins to gel up. So you want to have everything ready to go. Nice, quick, and easy. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check on the inside here to make sure that there aren't any glue drips. And that actually went pretty clean, which is nice. I'm just going to come in here and nice and simple. Now I'm going to do that for all 4. So please consider subscribing and liking. You know, all the equipment I use is down in the description. For $500 off a new commission, just use promo code YouTube on my website. We'll see you next time.